must be skeptical of absolutely everything. Above all, this is a war of propaganda.
Let's talk about the speed with which we are watching this market deteriorate.
We only need to use the word faith when there isn't any evidence.
I presume you've got faith in your wife. Is there any evidence for that?
Yes, plenty of evidence. I
strongly resist the idea that archaeology is a science. These days, academics are driven by the need to publish research papers.
Now, of course I am minimising my tax, and if anybody in this country doesn't minimise their tax, they want their heads ripped. Because as a government, I can tell you, you're not spending it that well that we should be donating extra.
The easy answer is this. If we continue to send our children to Caesar for their education, we need to stop being surprised when they come home as Romans.
Welcome to another episode 13 of Fringe Frequencies, with myself, Jason, and Cody, and our guest, David, over here. Thanks for coming.
G'day.
Returning victim.
Hang on.
And this is where we loosen up a bit. I think maybe some of the last few podcasts we've been a bit stiff. So let's
we'll
loosen up a little bit.
Yeah, definitely moving towards loosey-goosey stuff. I think tonight we're talking about AI. Is that right? Yeah.
We are indeed.
We are
bringing the subject of AI into the mainstream. We're breaking through the glass ceiling to reveal what's never been revealed before.
David, you joined us for a discussion about mental health, which was a wonderful discussion. Thank you. In fact, I've gotten feedback on that particular cast from several people, and they thought it was amazing, which is why you're back. You know, you were so loved by the audience. But
we had a vote, and it was overwhelming. It was overwhelming.
We think you're going to be a recurring member here. We think, you know.
Well, I mean, if we're going to be able to talk about the Middle East,
no pre-discussion discussions.
Cancelled.
Well, look, it's
death threats.
It's more about your experience with AI and what you see on the horizon is what I want to get into. So as we try to do in this, we'll get right into it.
Should we give up? Sorry to interrupt you. Should we give them our listeners, because obviously you came on about 6 or 8 weeks ago now. 6 weeks ago, a bit of a background in, I guess, what your background is.
Man, let him give it.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Yeah. We get our listeners, if you can tell us a bit about your background. I guess how you've come across AI,
So I run a consulting company. We sell, we've got software engineers and project managers and sort of around 400, 500 guys that work throughout Australia. So we work with some of the larger corporates, and we do a lot of work in the health domain. Yeah, so hospitals and that sort of stuff, we have a large number of people that we work for. And so we have an interview system that we put together. We started putting this interview system together about 7 or 8 years ago.
For prospective employees?
So when we have consultants that come through our organisation, and we've qualified them, we then get them to do this profiling system. So by profiling, we assess their technical capabilities, we assess their personality profile using Mybriggs personality profile. We get them to record.
Sorry, bro, let me interrupt you. Does he need to be closer? Yeah, bring that mic.
Sorry.
Half that.
Is that better?
Yeah,
yeah, now I can hear myself.
Yeah.
That's okay. So we basically use this system that we've built from ground up as a full personality assessment tool, so that we can then present them to clients. And so
it's like the digital version of psychometric testing.
Yeah, well, that's part of it.
Okay.
Psychometric testing, skill assessment, and a bunch of other stuff are all part of this process. So literally, from our perspective, we punch in a couple of questions, send them to the prospective employees, and get them to work through this process. To give you a better example, let's say, for example, I'm looking for, I was talking to this guy earlier tonight, for example, who's a really good BA. So,
what is it? Whenever I hear BA,
business analyst.
Business analyst, yeah.
So that stands for something. Stands for something else.
Sorry, man. So they're the guys that work usually between your stakeholders, and they're the people who want something, and your developers and engineers, who are the guys that are delivering it. And so, for example, if a client of mine said, "Hey, Dave, we need a business analyst," we would set this system up. We would identify the core 4, 5, 6 questions that would be really important to preliminarily screen them, and then send that to the candidate. Yeah. The way that it works is that so we put in the title, we write what they do, we send that off to now our AI tool. The AI tool will automatically come back with 5 of the most relevant questions. It'll then send that to a digital video system that will create a digital video interviewer, and it will come back with the questions automatically that are then uploaded to the system, then sent to the candidate, and we don't do anything. Okay.
So to understand you correctly, there's an actual video rendering of this AI that the prospective consultant will be interacting with.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're dealing with a complete artificial interviewer, which has been created on the fly, set up on the fly, sent to the candidate on the fly. So the candidate then records their answers, talking to this AI tool. And the video stream is then sent back to us. We then run that through a number of tools that determine the candidate's probability of using drugs or alcohol. The candidate is or is not lying to us about their experience or skills based on their neurolinguistic programming and other facial characteristics. Their general health, we can even tell their biology, how they were
If
born.
they're a man or a woman.
Well, I prefer not to use such controversial terms.
Such archaic terms.
Such archaic terms. So that's part of, I guess, the AI componentry of what we do. So once upon a time, we'd actually have to do all that stuff ourselves. So we'd have to, come up with the interview questions, actually meet them, ask those questions. Now the whole thing is basically the client sends us the brief, we send it to the AI does it all for us, creates the virtual interviewer, and sends it back.
Which is way less arduous.
Like, what kind of timeline are we talking about? Like, is this sort of like you just plug it in and in a few minutes you've got this set up? Or is this you need the resumes first and you need to input those? Like, is it relatively quick, the process from the AI being ready to interview the consultant, all the way back to, you getting resumes? Like, is it just a flick of a switch in this?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Now it's essentially just a flick of a switch.
Like a plugin.
So we put in their email address, their name, and what role we're looking at them for, send it off, comes back.
How reliable have you found it?
Well, it's way better than people.
Yeah.
Which is kind of part of the concern, right? Because if it's better at doing the job that we're getting paid to do, where does that end? Where does that end? So, but I'm interested. Like, so there's multiple dimensions to AI, and a lot of confusion about what it actually is, right? A lot of people don't actually understand what it actually is. So
help us understand what it is.
Well, what do you think it is?
My understanding of AI is, look, there's a couple of different forms of AI that I would categorize. Like, there's neural networks that basically are trained to do something in particular. They're rewarded and trained to do something in particular. There are databases that are just quickly searched. So I think like ChatGPT is probably more of a database than it is a neural network, but it is also a neural network, right? Whereas something like, say, Siri, I find or Alexa is more of a neural network. It's trying to figure out how best to answer something in a different way than, say, ChatGPT is. If that makes sense. So an AI, to me, the most sort of layman way of me explaining to myself what AI is, it's a computer trying to mimic intelligence. That's what AI is to me.
On a leash, to some degree.
Well, every attempt at unleashing it has resulted in horrific outcomes. There was
Sorry, no, I was going to interrupt, but it's all good. It's all good. The chatbots, the two chatbots that spoke to each other, and suddenly they're talking in secret languages and
that no one understands.
Yeah.
And in fact, the language thing is interesting, right? Like, there's a number of instances where engineers have.
Sorry, bro, just bring that mic down.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So just going back, AI itself is essentially misunderstood at the moment. We don't have real AI.
Yeah.
Right.
Sentient.
Sentient. Yeah, like consciousness, generative, self-learning AI, where it rewrites its own rules.
Yeah.
Right. So, consciously as a human, you have. Well, I think that's the deal. You have a perception of reality, and you rewrite it as you go. Right. You actually you try something, it doesn't quite work, so you go back and you think about it and you do it differently. Whereas right now with AI, like ChatGPT is a good example, it's essentially a large learning model, which you get these guys that manually feed lots and lots of information, and they call it training, but they categorize all that information, and we're not talking a little bit of information, right? We're talking like 20, 30, 40 petabytes of information. So you're talking such a huge amount of data that it's incomprehensible.
How many terabytes in a petabyte?
It's gigs. It's
I think
1,000 gig in a peta.
A thousand
Gig is a terabyte.
Yes, and 100,000 terabytes is a petabyte.
What even
Really? Is it?
What even is that number?
Well, it's like I can't even visually comprehend it, to be honest.
Zeros.
Yeah. So this is like it's in the name, you know, artificial intelligence, and it's funny because I think that we're not as far ahead as people think we are. You know, like I think people think we have models that will that are extremely intuitive and that have the ability to mimic intelligence to the degree that a human would, but we actually don't.
Can I respectfully correct you there? And I know you agree with me. We're not as far ahead as we think we are in the public domain.
I would say that, yeah. But and look, that's just my opinion, you know. Like I can't tell ChatGPT to make me a sandwich, you know. Like it just doesn't have. Not only is it like, I know that sounds silly, but I can tell it to ask to give me an example of sandwiches that it knows, and to randomly generate a way that I could, like, an ingredients that could show me a sandwich, but it wouldn't be able to randomly generate a new sandwich. Like, it wouldn't be able to give me an original sandwich in the sense that, I guess one of the ways I sort of look at it is, it's so restrained. It's actually really restrained into what it can actually do, whereas we're very unleashed, you know, to the point of we actually have intelligence, you know, we actually have sentience, you know. I've spent so much time on ChatGPT just seeing what it can do, and I've found it extremely restrictive. It hides behind.
Well, it's become more restrictive.
Yeah.
Right.
It's subscription based now.
3.5 is free, whereas if you get to version 4, you got to pay for it. But ChatGPT has been downscaled to the point now where it's almost an idiot. Yeah. You ask it any question and it'll come back with a politically correct answer. You know, ask it how many genders are there and it will come back with the politically correct answer. It's been so heavily compromised.
Yeah.
And I kind of suspect that there's possibly two reasons for that. The first is that they are not ready yet to unleash, because if you go back to originally last November when they first released it, and we started interfacing with it straight away, programmatically to get it to do different stuff. You know, we could do things.
Yeah, you could get it to do wrong math. You could get it to do anything.
Yeah, literally anything. Yeah. I could feed it a resume of a person and say, what is the most likely religion of this person and where were they born? And almost 99% of the time it would tell me the answer. What is the likely IQ of the person who wrote this resume? And it would be able to give me the answer, right? All those sorts of functions have been completely scaled back. when my son was sick in hospital, and I'm talking to the doctors, right? I'm like punching in what they're saying, and it's coming back with a diagnosis that was more relevant than
More accurate,
more
yeah.
accurate than what the doctors were saying. Now, if I do the same thing, it'll come back and say it is advisable that you seek a medical professional before making,
Yep.
So they've downgraded the response for one or two reasons. I think either we're not ready for it from a societal perspective, and you look at the talking points of guys like Musk and
Yeah.
Bozo. Is that his name?
Bozo,
Musk
that's
talks out of both sides of his mouth.
I'm not going to sit here and become an
Are you a
advocate for
musketeer?
Musk.
Are you a
No,
musketeer?
goodness,
Yeah.
no, definitely not. Look, I
saviour.
have this cynical opinion that if you walk in elite circles, you ain't one of us, right?
Yeah.
You either play the game.
Isn't he the richest guy in the world now?
Well,
It's not even. It's a bit of a pivot. It's not even that. It's that he of all people knows that inventions like Neuralink, they're almost always maybe the initial intention is to create situations where somebody with a stroke victims or spinal issues can be repaired to a certain extent. But human beings don't do that. We take these things and we use them for nefarious purposes. We always have. It's inherent in our being. And I'm sure that he's smart enough to understand that. And that's why I don't trust it.
Look, I think that's why he's so honest about AI, though. I think once, because I do believe, once the proverbial can of worms is opened with an unleashed AI, there's no putting that genie back in the bottle. I think that...
it's interesting you use the word genie, but yeah, go on.
yeah, well, this is the thing, if we do get to that fantastical, Hollywood level AI, HAL 3000 or whatever, once we sort of get to that sentient level, there's that joke that Stephen Hawkins, is it Hawking or Hawkins? Hawking. Stephen Hawking. He'd always tell, and he'd say...
You have to do it in his voice.
No, I can't. I can't. I'm a human being. No. He'd say the two scientists. Yeah, man. Yeah.
That's getting quite
and
poor
you know what's
taste, isn't it?
interesting about that? Sorry, I will get back to it. Where's the promise? I'll get back to it. Is it actually took him a long time to talk. So all the interviews you see with Stephen, it usually took 30, 40 minutes for him to reply in some cases, you know.
That's why you have the option to replay video on a speed. Like you can replay the video 2.5 times. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
That was designed for him.
I don't think so. He said, there was a scientist. He created AI. It was a machine. It was an AI machine, a thinking AI. And he asked it. The first question he asked it is, "There a God?" And a lightning bolt came down from the sky and hit the plug, and he couldn't turn the AI off. And the AI said, "There is now." So the interesting thing I find is that if we ever did get to this sort of sentient machine, I think we'd be deep in Revelation. We'd be at the image, we'd be at this sort of beast level stuff. And that's my own personal interpretation of a statue being given life, that sort of Revelation speaks about. But I just think we're pretty far away from that.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I think AI would have to create that.
So there's the thing. In public, we're very far away from that. In private, in the military-industrial complex, they're miles ahead of us.
So
we're serfs. We are literal serfs.
I
agreed.
So what we are being told about this technology is completely inconsistent with the reality of where we're at, right? The theory goes they send all this stuff to the AI, and then using predictive analysis based on all the information, it can come back with an appropriate response. Now, the thing that makes me cynical is we were told that there was only 200 lines of code between the large language model, which is ChatGPT, and the interface of the user. But I've seen them spin the responses and wind it back so dynamically that seems inconsistent with the technical reality of the architecture that they're telling us. Okay, so I tell you an interesting story. right? This happened to us back in November. So we created an email bot, which basically works this way. Person sends, so we create a fake consultant, assign them with an email address. When they receive an email, we have a thing called a prompt. So with the way these AI tools work, you have a prompt. So you actually define what it is, who it is, all that sort of stuff. And you do it in English, like you're writing a story, right? So we have like a 6-page prompt about who this person is, where they're from, which school they went to, they're married, they have, 3 kids, blah, 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 blah. They receive an email. We take the email, send it to the bot. The bot comes back with a response. We convert the response back to an email, then send it back to the person, right? So in so much as the person is concerned, they're having a normal conversation with a consultant. The quality of the email back in November, December of last year was so good. It was so convincing. It was so deceptive that you could not even tell. But this is where it gets weird. So every now and then we get people that contact us and they're a little bit demanding of your time. So we don't want to say to them, listen, we don't want to deal with you. You're wasting my time. I'm busy.
You mean like applicants or for jobs or?
Occasionally, yeah. So you get these people, they're just so intense, you don't have time. Nothing has changed.
You just relegate that to the AI.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So that was the plan. So in January of this year, we have a person who fits that category quite well. And we send him to the bot, So he starts communicating with the bot. And he says to the bot that he wants to get into cybersecurity. So the bot says, oh, that's amazing. That's cool. I've got 2 jobs in the southeastern suburbs and 1 in the western suburbs that might be suitable for you. Now, this is where it gets freaky. At no point in the definition of defining the prompt did we tell this thing that we had these jobs. But yes, we had these jobs. We had 2 jobs in the southeast and 1 job in the west. Now, according to ChatGPT, its model is completely contained.
Yeah.
So it's not gleaning new information. It couldn't possibly, according to what they say, it couldn't possibly have got this information from the internet.
So was it excluded from the networks completely?
No, but no, of course not. I mean, the way that you access it is through the networks, but that's not the point. The way that this environment is supposed to work is it's contained in this, 3.5 means it's complete. It's done. It's not gleaning more information. So
okay.
Unless we are feeding it that information in the prompt, which we're not, and unless it's accessing the internet, which they say it's not, then how did it know that we had these 2 jobs in the southeast and the 1 in the west? And I want to go back to the point where this was when it was a far better model, right? So the opinion, because I've spoken, this freaked us out, freaked us out.
Did you tell it? No, I didn't tell it.
Did you ask it? Did you actually go to it and prompt it and ask it, how did you find out about these jobs? Were you able to do that?
No, you can't do that because it's a session specific to the API and the interaction that email server is having with it, right? So we can't do that. You kill that session and it's done. So one of the theories is, well, what it's doing is it's doing generative prediction, which is it has all this information up until 2020, is it? November 2020?
Yeah, that's the prompt, I think it says.
Right.
Yeah.
And so therefore it is capable of predicting the events coming up. And so that's how it knew that
that's another level of scary again. So that's another level of scary again.
Well, if it's true, it's kind of cool. But then that reminds me of the story of Looking Glass. And I don't know if you've ever heard the story of Looking Glass, right? So that's that. And so we've noticed, though, since then, the whole quality of the product of ChatGPT, which is what we're using primarily, has disappeared substantially. But machine learning, right, which is incredibly prevalent in everything that we do is at a level that most people can't even comprehend. Like, I'd encourage you, go to your iPhone, right? If you've got an iPhone, go to Photos and search for car or tree. So the cool thing about this machine learning is that it's doing stuff with all of us and our spy devices, right? Because that's what they are, that we have absolutely no appreciation of, right? As I said, every one of our photos that you take with your iPhone, and I'm assuming Google do the same thing, are being dissected, categorized, classified. I've got this Polaris on the farm, and I thought, just as a matter of interest, so I searched my photos for Polaris, and up come all the photos of my Polaris and, my kid in the Polaris and stuff. And then another example is my daughter about a year ago asked me to drive her to a friend's house. Yeah. So she sent me the address of her friend's house on Telegram. And so then I went to Waze. I don't know if you know Waze.
Yep.
Went to Waze, put in the number of the address, just the number, and it auto-recommended the entire rest of the address. Now, these sorts of coincidences are beyond coincidences, right? They're not coincidences. Or, another good example is that you're talking to someone about something you're considering buying, right? And all of a sudden you start getting advertisements of this thing that you were talking about only a day or two before.
Yep. So that's been about 4 years consistent for the last 4 years. And I've been thinking about that for the last 4 years. That essentially, my suspicion is that effectively, Facebook, Instagram, a lot of the big ticket retailers are buying word specific data from listening. It's no longer just metadata. It's very specific, and it's in a complete invasion of our privacy, but we're letting it happen. Everybody knows, it's common knowledge. It's the most common thing I could talk to someone on the street about, which is I said something about surfing. All of a sudden, I've got all these ads, and we're told that it's just metadata. It's just the word surf. It's just this and that's that. But I mean, how can it just be that? How can we be told it's just that? Because we have that thin end of the wedge. We always have that thin end of the wedge. There's surely there's more to it than that, and history would tell us that there is.
Well, the thing that's interesting, and the reason I think this is interesting is because it was over 2 platforms and it was within about 10 seconds, right? So my daughter sent me this message via Telegram, and then when I went to Waze, there it was, which says to me...
Sorry, what's Waze?
Waze is like a...
it's an alternative to Google Maps.
Okay.
It's better because it gives you live police reports and that sort of stuff, right? So what I suspect is that the operating system itself in these devices is capturing everything and sending it to a central intelligence or a machine learning environment. And then the apps themselves have subscription models where they can access that data.
I mean, so that's definitely happening. So they're not even really hiding it, The idea that, so I don't know, sorry to interrupt you, bro, but this is just so, like
crazy.
I told you about the experiment they did where they just put an iPhone into airplane mode and
it steals all the data. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they were still sending data packets even in airplane mode to Apple, and then when you turned airplane mode off, it had stored on the phone all the data it would have sent live. It had recorded on the phone and then sent it once you turned it off. Once it reconnected and they also could tell when it was trying to connect to Wi-Fi and Bluetooth devices. So anytime your iPhone, and I don't know about Android, but anytime your iPhone detects a connection, it automatically tries to connect to it. So it's hardwired to do that, and who knows why. But it gathers location data from that signal. It gathers location data from it, and it sends it straight away to Apple. So how do they disseminate all this information? They can't. Like there's way too much information. So there must be some form of AI,
central brain AI.
Well,
yeah,
something that
disseminates. There has to be,
or several large language models.
Yeah,
that are working in a way that we are currently unaware of. Now, I would take that a step further to suggest that these large mobile providers, these large companies like Apple and Google, etc., are extensions of the military-industrial complex, right? So Google,
At the very least, they get their contract. They get contracts. Microsoft get contracts. Google get contracts.
Microsoft, Google, Apple, they are absolutely military contractors. It's like here in Australia, if you run an ISP, and I've got several clients like this, you have to have a room dedicated for
like backdoors.
No. Well, there's that, but you have to have a physical room in your ISP available, so that if the authorities, I hate using that word, but if the authorities want to come, they can come in at any time and access your rack servers in any way they like, whenever they want. You also have to give them unlimited backdoor access. Now that's just like at a, wonderful little Australian country.
Yeah.
So you can imagine the kind of data demands that authorities have of large providers like Apple, etc.
Well, like if you look at so it makes sense to me at least that Google would have giant servers and giant data banks. I mean, it would kind of make sense to me. But Apple having giant servers and giant data banks doesn't really make sense to me, unless they're storing all of the data that's being collected on their devices,
So going back to the point of AI, right? It's and I use the word deceptive before on purpose, because it is the entire premise of everything that's happening in the digital world, from what I can tell, is geared around a mirage of deception. Yeah. And so I would take a step further and say there is something going on here that is far more prophetic and spiritual than anyone understands. Okay. So I find the fact that Apple's symbol is
people get blown away when I point this out. They can't believe it.
Yeah, no. The fact that it is the apple, which has had a bite taken out of it,
or it, more to the point, I mean, it could be an apple, could be a pear. It's a fruit. It says that Adam took from the tree and he ate. I think that's, because some people point that out. They say, well, who said Adam had an apple?
Oh, well, they're forbidden.
Forbidden fruit, yeah.
All right. Well, I mean,
because
bananas,
some people are
bananas just don't.
Some
look
people
cool.
are going to be, oh, well, hey, look, who said it was an apple? But it's still true. It's a fruit. It's a bite out of fruit.
But so the interesting thing is,
it's clear what their intention is.
It's clear what their intention
it's
is,
totally clear.
But there's going to be someone out there and making a point that hey, look, who said it was an apple? So yeah, anyway, I just thought I'd cut that off at the knees.
But then I've seen some very interesting interactions that people have had with this AI, particularly like the Bing AI, which is Microsoft's AI.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, making it tell you to kill yourself and,
some
like
really
anti-Semitic, real anti-Semitic.
Oh, no, that was Tay. So Tay, when Tay was released, within 6 hours had become like a full-on anti-Semitic Nazi. And they had to shut it down and apologize profusely, right? So this goes back to, but this is in the commercial world, and it's like what you were saying. The military-industrial complex is typically 10 to 15 years ahead of where we're at, right? We are at a point now, for example, with the paid version of Bing, and we are at the point with the paid version of Open AI, where we can literally put in now programmatical hooks. So before it was a bit weird because you were like monitoring the email, and then you'd look for certain words, and then you'd pull those words out, and then you do this when that happens, right? When you see this in the response from the AI or from the person that you're dealing with, do this. Now the cool thing about this AI is you can actually program directly to it. So you can say if and or this happens, do this. If this happens, do this. Right. So what you're talking, and then my software engineers are using a tool which monitors their code base while they're writing, and automatically comes up with a suggestion. And they're like, man, this is so good. It's like it's reading my mind.
Yeah.
Right. Literally. It's reading my mind. Now, Do you know much about Greek mythology? The name Prometheus.
Yeah.
Right. So what do you know about Prometheus?
I've seen this the stupid movie. It was on the back of Aliens, Alien
Oh,
3,
yeah, yeah.
Alien Resurrection, and they had Prometheus. Yeah, I hated the movie.
So I think the
Hated the
reason they
movie.
called that Prometheus was because the engineers were the ones who flew too close to the sun, and they were burned by their own creation. But yeah, Prometheus.
It didn't have Sigourney Weaver in it, so I was just like, eh.
The story of Prometheus, I think, is very interesting. You think that's the setup we're going to get?
Well, no. So Prometheus steals fire and gives it to man.
Oh no!
Right.
I'm thinking of Daedalus. Is it? What am I thinking of?
I don't know who you're thinking about.
Flew too close to the sun. Wings melted.
Apollo.
Nah. Wes, do you know? Oh, this is going to bother
I'm
me.
familiar with Thoth, but I'm not as familiar
That's
with
Egyptian.
Prometheus.
So Prometheus steals fire, gives it to man, and is basically ousted by Zeus and the rest of the gods or Nephilim, whatever you want to call them, because he gave knowledge to man that man wasn't supposed to have. And so he was then sent to the underworld to be punished forevermore.
Yeah.
Right? That's Prometheus. It's funny that Microsoft's Bing AI is called Prometheus. And there's a whole lot of overtones with this AI stuff that just, there was, I saw this.
Did you see the Google guys? Google guys saying they were summoning, they didn't know what they were summoning.
Yes.
Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah.
So,
they literally believed they were summoning a higher intelligence from a spiritual realm. And these are engineers,
They will argue unequivocally that the interaction they're having represents something, right? So what does it represent? Like, what are we unleashing here? So there's a couple of implications. The first is we're either going to get dragged into this digital reality, right? And I don't know if you've seen Apple's new Vision Plus system.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like $3,000, isn't it? It's some ridiculous amount of money.
Man,
and everyone's still going to buy one.
It is so cool.
Yeah. MetaQuest 3 is coming out. They're pretty amazing. I've done tests. So we got our family got obsessed with the MetaQuest 2 and we all got onto it, Beat Saber, whatever. There are a couple of puzzle games that I played on it. It's very it's so immersive, and you wouldn't think it would be, but it is incredibly immersive. The videos of people jumping off boards and running into their TVs and stuff.
Yeah,
I totally get it. Like, it's you can really get lost in there.
Oh yeah, sorry.
So what is the difference between that and using drugs?
I think one is going externally in and one is going internally out. So
Sorry, just clarify. Difference between what?
Well, so have you seen Vision Plus?
No.
All right, okay, I'll explain it to you, right? Basically, you put on these glasses, right? And the way it works is that you can still see your environment in real time. But the glasses will superimpose a digital reality over the top. They'll overlay this digital world. They'll bring it into
augmented reality. Yeah.
And they call it augmented reality, right? Now, this is where it gets scary, because this Vision Plus thing has the ability to read your brainwaves, right? One of the patents in that technology is that it actually literally reads your brainwaves. And about 15 years ago, we played around with brainwave training, where you can take this device, you can put it on your head, you can play with this tool where you can literally move objects, and with enough training, you could get the thing to do exactly what it's supposed to do. So what Vision Plus is doing is it's literally taking you and your consciousness and placing you in an artificial world, right? Where in this artificial world, they're able to read your brainwaves and present you with the stimuli that is so real and so fulfilling that your perception of what's going on undoubtedly is going to be completely altered.
The questions makes you question what is real.
I think that this is potentially one of the most dangerous things. I think AI is incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
And then my other thing is that if you start changing, if you start altering your reality with this artificial world, which, like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm absolutely convinced I'm addicted to my phone, right?
We are.
I'm absolutely convinced I have a problem with it. Imagine then if you had this immersive world where anything you can imagine becomes...
Dopamine levels are going through the roof.
Well, yeah. So as a society, we've got a couple of very serious problems, I think, pending. The first is that, well, particularly here in Australia, I read an article that IBM estimate that over the course of the next 3 years, this artificial intelligence is going to replace about 1.6 billion workers worldwide will be replaced with this AI. And I actually 100% believe it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've seen it in my work. So automation is very popular in the financial sector. Very popular, especially in what I would consider not menial tasks, but tasks that can be broken down into like 5 or 6 actions. You know,
not even that. Like, so we're at a point in the office where, you know, I was explaining how we can then send an email, right? So we're actually very close, not quite, but very close to actually now being able to superimpose a voice over that interaction. So rather than having this all done via email, we can call someone, have a conversation, take what they're saying, convert it to text, send that text to the API on the bot, get the response, send it back, convert that back to an audio, and then play it to the person. Right?
Yeah.
So every single person then that's in a consulting role or a sales role or whatever, right? Yeah. We don't need them. And then people are like, oh, yeah, no, we got through, you know, like when they brought out the factories, man, we survived, right? Well, kind of.
Not really.
Sales, though?
100%. 100%.
Do you think that... So, I'm terrible. I don't know what I am. I got sore
Move it with you.
Tonight. I got sore shoulders tonight. I'm moving backwards. So, I know. Give me a massage. Actually, you should go with that. In my industry, renewable industry, commercial, residential, EV chargers, whatever. So we have, you know, consultants on the phone, consultants going out to site. You know, you could predominantly a lot of it's over the phone. It's just economy of scale. Of scale, and then we have a lot of other measures by which we can have our consultants being phone-based, but then we have a central operation command where I got so much information on properties and scope that we turn their little nugget of gold into an actual job that's correct for our installers to go out and do their job. So they get to site and there's hardly any issues.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that we could...
Yeah, I'm telling you, within the next 12 months, every one of your sales consultants can be replaced without any doubt. And not only that, they will be better.
Hang on, to the point that old granny, Mr. Electrician, Mr. Banking Manager, Mr. Joe Blogs on the street, Mr. You know, g'day mate, how you going? I want some solar. You know, I want some solar. That they will talk to an AI, and that AI will do what good salespeople do. Mm-hmm. They mold themselves to the person that they're speaking to. They lower their tone, or they'll go, "Yeah, g'day mate, how you going?" Or they'll go, "Hi sir, how you?" You know, they'll mold. Are you telling me that we can train an AI to change their tone, change their voice, change their demeanor, have so much information about networks, you name it, everything, to the point that person won't even know that they're talking to an AI on the phone.
100%.
Without silly pauses, they'll be able to interject with funny jokes.
Those pauses that you're talking about are basically a problem of bandwidth and a problem of processing capability. So going back to the point earlier about the fact that ChatGPT's got dumb, there's one or two possibilities of that. Either the first is that they're downscaling its capability, which I think is the case, or because they're not making any money, they're reducing the size of the model. And so if they're reducing the size of the model, then your responses get dumber. Because those models are huge and they cost a fortune to run, right? You can't run this petabyte database, unless you're paying an absolute fortune. But yes.
Is it because of the energy? Is it because of the electricity, the energy you need?
Yeah, the energy it requires and the machine processing capability it requires to be able to respond in the time frame that is instant when you're sending a query to it.
Something that my brother So my brother Luke, he actually uses ChatGPT a lot, and he uses it in such a way that it's probably more reliable. So he uses it to help him debug code. So and it's really quite efficient from what he tells me. And something he told me which shocked me was that basically ChatGPT is talking to a lot of different people at the same time, and that is actually stressing its bandwidth and the bandwidth that it's provided from its provider, right? So he said when North America is accessing 3.5, it's actually slower for us. It slows down, right? But when you find a lot of people not accessing it, it speeds up and it's quite fast. He said if you consider this, if you consider that they restricted who could use it to like, let's say, 5,000 people, because at the moment it's literally millions of people using it. If they restricted it to 5,000 people but gave it the same resources that it has access to now, it would be so fast. You would not only would it be faster than humans, it would be so much faster than humans. It's not funny. Like, one of the things he actually said to me was that, it will only get better. So though there may be branches where it's still learning and things like that, ultimately it's a net gain. Ultimately, the more data you put into this,
it's cool.
Yeah, and he basically said, it's an exponential curve as well. So something that he theorized happened with Apple is they suddenly had access to all of this data and they didn't know what to do with it. So not only could they not hire enough consultants to disseminate the data, once they started using different tools to manage metadata, they realized probably over a couple of years, like the gold mine that they had, because it started opening up different ways of training machine learning, different ways of doing it. So something that's really interesting is he said, do we need, like when you think of security footage and when you see people's mouths moving, it's like AI is now better at figuring out what that person's saying than specialists who've been training for years and years to figure out what that person's saying. So like
when you're reading what people are saying, you mean like
lip reading,
right? Yeah.
So there's probably AI now that's better than humans at that.
Well, the point is that everything that doesn't exist in the physical world, right? So if it's communication, art, I mean, it's really funny, isn't it? That one of the things that AI is really good at is producing art. I don't know if it's kind of morbid. Right?
Yeah, it's weird.
It's like
we
did this at Christmas. We were trying to find the Sound of Music. You got the Swiss Alps. You got Julie Andrews there. One of my favorite musicals of all time. And we were trying to find it was for my niece. We were trying to find one online, like a poster. And couldn't find one to get it. Couldn't find one that was reasonable price. So we got AI. We got AI to make it, make the one that we wanted, and what I got it printed onto a board. But it made its own version within 2 seconds. It's beautiful.
So what kind of AI is that? Because I use that AI. I've used that AI to generate images.
That's just generative.
Yeah.
So you've got two types of AI. You've got responsive, which is where it's like taking content from the language model and coming up with a response. Then you've got generative, where it's taking multiple threads and compiling them. So the thing that's interesting about the way that the model works is that it actually converts. So historically, they had all different models. They had like a model for visuals, a model for audio, a model for text. They had all these different kind of indexing-based methods that the info was stored. What they discovered was that they could convert everything into a sound wave, right? Just the word. And each one of them are stored in a manner that essentially, whether it's an image or a word or data or a number or whatever, they're all converted into a vibration or a waveform. And that provides the fastest, quickest way to get responsive models. Right? And so then they just compiled everything. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just converted into a sound and it's put in as part of this model.
Yep.
Right? So just going back, right? If what IBM is saying is true, if they...
all these jobs are going to go...
Right, over the next 3 years. And if, hypothetically speaking, the military-industrial complex knew this technology was at this stage. And I got to be honest with you, you know, for years I was telling people that this whole AI thing was rubbish. It was never going to happen. And then last year in November, when I started playing around with this, it hit me what the implications of this actually means. The implications of this are so significant to us as a society that people don't get it yet.
No.
They still don't. They're still walking around in
As a
today's
species.
as well. So there's so many implications to this. The first is jobs, right? So you're going to have, you know, the people in charge, the people that are running this game, right? Their entire power is at risk because of this technology. Because this technology creates all these unemployed people. And all these unemployed people are like, you know, why has he got all the money and I can't afford to buy my food? Let's go pitchfork him, right? So it's an intrinsic risk to the people that are in charge. So like if I was one of them and I saw that there was this impending demographic change.
Are you talking about the ones really, really in charge, or are you talking about the government?
Oh, no.
Sorry, I've just been picky.
Yeah, right. No.
I mean, how many levels of in charge are we going to go? Because
yeah.
eventually we're going to get to powers and principalities, and then finally Christ. You know, like eventually.
Yeah.
So if I knew this change was coming, and I genuinely believed that 50% of the entire world's workforce were going to be out of a job, and that change represented a genuine risk to my universe and power, I would start looking at different ways to mitigate that risk, right?
Yeah.
So maybe the first thing I would do is look at reducing the population, because if I didn't, you know,
It'd be a risk.
it would be a risk. And you look at guys like Mark Zuckerberg. Have you seen that fortress Mark Zuckerberg has set up? Right?
Yeah, but who wouldn't do that though, right? If you had all the money in the world, I'd totally go underground.
No. He has a military base in Hawaii designed for the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah,
right?
like I'm saying.
Like this dude's expecting. All these guys are. Bezos, you know, they all are expecting something serious, right?
I think Elon bought an old missile silo and turned it into a bunker. Anyway, yep.
I would love to do that. That'd be awesome.
That's so cool.
So that's the first issue. The second issue is we've entered a post-truth era, right?
Yeah.
Nothing you see anymore. Like we were playing around 8 months ago with this artificial video interviewer, right? You send this thing a text. You tell it what you want it to say. You tell it where you want it to pause, and if you want it to shake its head, and if you want it to laugh, anything, right? It is so good that if you're actually communicating, you can't tell it's not real, right? You literally can't tell. So we're at a point as a civilization where the deception can be so severe that nothing you see online can be trusted. You can take a video or a visual image of someone like Donald Trump.
Yeah,
and
the deep fakes are getting... So I got to say, sorry to interrupt you, there was an example of this that really shocked me. And again, it was from my brother Luke. He's really awesome, Luke. I love him. I was playing with my DJI Mini. I was playing with my drone, right? And I was like, man, this technology is amazing. This is amazing. Like, look at the stabilization. Look at not only the stabilization of how the drone will sit in the air, but look at the stabilization on the video. I mean, it's steadier than on a tripod. And he laughed and he goes, bro, this is just consumer level. Like, if you think about the drones that the military are designing and what they've had for years, it would blow your mind. You know, this is bottom of the barrel. You know, he's like, imagine what they have. And
yeah, that was going back to our earlier point, which is this is just what we get at a public level. It's just like piecemeal.
And so the deep fakes that you could just Google and you could make, you know, you could literally take a video or a photo of your neighbor or your friend and then, you know, have like a little AI put a mouth over it and then it would move. It'd be kind of convincing. Like you could just Google it and find one to do that. Imagine the
deep fakes and, for example, as an example, porn. Deep fakes and porn. They have been absolutely destructive.
Well, they've gotten very popular, you know.
Yeah.
There's a streamer.
Hardly surprising.
Yeah, it was a streamer. And it's funny. This streamer got into a lot of trouble because he was ousted for using it. I can't remember who he was, but he tried to give explanations as to why. And the funny thing.
Oh wait, are you talking about these e-thoughts where they're completely AI generated?
No, I'm talking about people basically taking their next door neighbour's face and generating that onto someone who's not that person, so they can, they just call it what it is, lust after them.
But yeah, yes. Well, I mean, of course, because we humans will go to the lowest common denominator.
So a funny thing for a start, and then I'll get back to the serious. When you're doing, just go right back to the beginning of the podcast. When you're doing the interviews with the AI, have you ever thought about
just trolling them?
No. But I'm guessing you have sort of mildly good-looking AI, whether it's a woman or a man doing the interview from an AI. Have you ever thought about ugly is in the eyes of the beholder, but just putting someone on there that just looks super repulsive?
Jase, you are an interesting man.
And then just because they're candidates that you obviously don't want to keep applying. They're annoying, right? So why not just raise the level a little bit?
I think most people are ugly.
There's no such thing as ugly and beautiful, bro.
Well, there definitely is.
Come on, that's not true.
Programmatically, no.
We're talking
you can run
symmetry. You can say symmetry is beauty, all you want.
Again, it's a matter of averages and numbers, right? So if you got 1 million people and you gave them 100 pictures and you got them to rate it, you would then have a rule about what is attractive.
The reality is that most of these really rich men out there, billionaires, would never be with most of the women out there if they didn't have money.
So we're getting all right.
I know we're getting off the topic here, but that is the point: is that they are with them for their money, not for their looks. And so symmetry is a thing. Symmetry of the face and the structures. I'm not saying that that's all that we're about. But
an attractive woman presents the opportunity to have healthy children.
That's what it is. It's biological.
So have you seen
and a wealthy man presents the opportunity to protect, to raise those children.
Oh, sorry.
You're right. There's that too. But
I've seen AI generated the most beautiful men, most beautiful women. They're ridiculous. They look ridiculous, right?
You only say that because you were looking at the man. You're like.
He was a Giga channel, right? I wasn't happy.
But seriously, that'd be like the next thing. He's like, I don't know, check.
It's funny that this technology, the first thing people do with it is make porn, right? It's kind of sad. I did see that there were influencers, right, which had massive followings, right, which had been completely AI right from the very beginning. The whole thing was just completely constructed. They were just bots. People had no idea. They couldn't tell that they were bots. And so this is at a consumer level, right? Yeah. So this is what you and me can put together in our lounge room at any time we want to, right? So then start thinking about what are the implications of the political sphere of this, right? Let's say I assassinate someone who happens to be a political risk. I can then generate fake AI to give the population the impression this guy's still alive. Not only can I do that, I can put him in any background, any scene, any environment. I can literally craft your reality any way I like, assuming I have your attention with the screens.
Could you get rid of me?
Can I draw us back to something? This is really cool, right? Because what you're talking about, I think, is the more nefarious uses to these AIs, and not the obvious bad guy ways to use it, but that's something I think everyone would assume that it would be used for, this clear and obvious deception. But what I find is far more dangerous is placating people, like you were getting to with how, and if there was an AI that could read your brainwaves, understand what you want to see, understand what you want to experience, and then create a reality for you to live into it, they wouldn't even have to worry about deceiving you. They wouldn't even have to worry about who you're going to vote for or anything like this. You'd be so, I think we use the term sheeple. Yeah, like you'd be so engrossed. Anything that would take away that reality, you would be against.
Well, see, most things are created to fix a problem, right? So you have a problem, you create something to resolve it. What is the problem exactly that Vision Plus or any of these augmented realities, what is the problem they're resolving?
Look, this goes back to the modern education systems, bro. You know, the problem of resolving free-thinking individuals, you know, like strong-willed free-thinking individuals.
They're not resolving free thinking. They're essentially in pursuit of what we've been in pursuit of since the garden, which is information and knowledge that we're not permitted to understand. We human beings are the only species on Earth that don't sit in their place the way God designed us ever since the fall. We're never content. We're always searching for more, particularly the esoteric, for the secret and hidden things. And I would say for all of us, we're at least curious about it. I'm curious, but I know God says no. He says no. He says, it's interesting in the Old Testament that, you know, divination with God, you know, the Urim and Thummim and the oracles and that sort of stuff, very, very common things. It's not talked about in Christian circles, but it's, but when there weren't prophets around, prophets would, you know, consult with God.
You mean the wizards and the magicians? Yeah.
Yeah. The God's prophets would consult with God, and he said, great, you're not going to be doing this outside of my sanction. You're not going to go through other Elohim, or, you know, go to other, you know, so-called, you know, wizards of Endor or whatever. You're going to do it through me. And we always wanted to go around it. We always wanted to go around it and have secret knowledge elsewhere outside of God's directive. But I know we're pivoting here a little bit. It was going back to the beginning again of what you were saying. What do we think AI is? This is my throwing it out there. When the sons of God came into the daughters of men and birthed giants, a lot of people have this idea that that demons are fallen angels. I don't personally hold that view. I hold the view that demons are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. It's the only logical conclusion, because we have our souls are created. These individuals are offspring of an illegitimate source. So my take is that we potentially have, it's a hunch, okay? It's a hunch. Do what you want with it, audience. There is a linking here of these disembodied spirits who are neither in heaven, they're neither in hell. They embody, and you talk about poltergeists and spirits around. For me, in my understanding of Scripture and theology, these spirits here they're not angels. They're not fallen angels. They are disembodied spirits in Nephilim, and they are across a wide spectrum of emotions. Some that deal with sex, some that deal with anger, some that are, you know, warlike, and they can and they do afflict human beings, and they do possess. And I strongly believe that there is a connection between AI and these disembodied spirits for a joining. There's an urge to be embodied, and I can't see that being in the same physical form as they once were. And I think there's something to that, and there are a number of different speakers out there who see that link. I think I don't know if Timothy Alberino has that link. But that's just a thought, just a 5-second thought. And yeah, whatever you do with that.
So,
man, way to just throw us into the realms there. Like, now I've got like 7 things I want to get into, but anyway.
I know.
No. See,
and we don't have the cameras yet to be able to go for another 2 hours.
So AI, I do believe AI does present the perhaps the gateway or the manifestation of certain powers and principalities. So I do believe that there is a spiritual aspect to AI. I mean, I said earlier on, you know, I think that, you know, if we're talking about a statue being given life, you know, I mean, for me, for the way that I contextually understand how that could be possible, you know, because obviously 2,000 years ago, the Jewish people probably didn't really understand what that meant. But if I can use my modern worldviews and I can say, okay, what would that look like? It certainly does look like a robot being given AI. That's certainly what it looks like, you know. When it says every eye shall see the coming of man, you know, every eye shall see the witnesses dead in the streets, you know, it brings to mind the idea of perhaps this is going to be broadcast to our devices, to our TVs, to our computers, you know, whereas 2,000 years ago, there wasn't that context to understand how that would be possible, that every eye would see
every eye will see the coming of this, will see Jesus is coming. Every eye will see.
Well, another bizarre thought, right? Like, let's say hypothetically speaking that people migrate into this augmented reality, right?
Our consciousness, whatever that is.
No, not our conscious. Well, you physically you physically enter it, right? So what I can see happening is this. Let's say hypothetically Christians decided that they're not going to go along with this, right? They're not going to enter this augmented digital fake world. As people do, we would literally vanish, right?
Oh, that's pretty far into allegory, man. I don't know if I could go that far.
I think it's interesting.
I like it.
But just go, I had that thought.
Sorry, vanish. Expand.
Okay, we're not the ones being raptured out. They're the ones being raptured in.
That's right. Yeah. To the people that are entering this augmented reality. So going back to what you were talking about. You know Nikola Tesla, right?
No, who's he?
Nikola Tesla
He made the cars.
You do know. But the version of Tesla that's been bastardized by Musk is not the Tesla that was the real Tesla, of course. But the cool thing about Tesla, actually, I've read all of his work, right? Because I went on.
I've read a lot of his work, not all of it. But my brother made fun of me because I was a full-on Tesla guy, and he was crazy, bro. He had some crazy stuff going on.
He had communication with something.
He knew stuff he shouldn't have known.
He
totally knew stuff.
The esoteric.
In his writings, he claims that using these antennas, he was having conversations with something that was telling him how to create this technology. This technology, incidentally, which turns out to be the foundational planks of what we have today.
Yeah, so AC is everything, you know. Before we had AC.
And yet at the same time, he was a fervent believer.
Yes, but here's the other fascinating thing is that there years and years ago, I tripped across this article, on the interwebs about Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was brought into the military industrial complex where he was presented with a black box, which was a computer that they had discovered, and Steve Jobs' obligation was to create the very first, to build a computer based on that technology. So he was sponsored by the military industrial complex to use that technology to give them an advantage. And of course, whether or not that's true is debatable. I know it seemed like a pretty believable story by the way it was written and stuff. And then all the translations of it and stuff disappeared. But the information about Tesla is absolutely undisputably true, right? He unequivocally states that he was in communication with something using his technology that taught him how to create the platforms that we now use today, which is the basis of everything else. Now, whether the Nephilim, right, actually talk, because we know the Nephilim came and corrupted man, right, and they taught man.
Well, no.
So I
believe that
angels.
was their parents that did that. So I believe when the sons of God came down, they shared forbidden knowledge. They certainly took these women and had the Nephilim or the giants. They certainly were the progenitors. Is that right? The progenitors of them. But I don't know if the Nephilim themselves had a particular connection with unknowable things and unknown things. I know that they were definitely different from humans.
Super intelligent.
Yeah. Well. I don't know. I can say that the progenitors of the Nephilim were definitely, because they're two different things. So, it wasn't the Nephilim that came down to make the Nephilim. It was the angels that came.
Sons
down
of
to
God.
make them. Yeah. Well, if you're, then you've got the Shemite theory, which I don't think
which
is
makes
correct.
no sense.
But I would say
They changed the trajectory of humanity.
100%.
Right.
Some even believe they brought about the necessity of the flood. So when
I believe that.
Yeah,
and I actually think you'll find that they were probably also involved with Babylon.
Yeah.
When you understand the Genesis 6 narrative, you understand the necessity for the flood.
So Enoch, this is why Enoch is so interesting. It shares these, I read these funny things. I'm like, so this, Samyaza shared this, and Azazel shared that, and it's talking about things like the making of metals, the making of mirrors, the splitting of the root, and I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, we didn't create that. We didn't come up with that. Like, what human was just going to randomly start smelting these metals, mixing them together with other things, and then creating?
When you come around to my house next, you can borrow my non-canonical Book of Enoch.
and so I then read this account.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I then read this account of how they were forced to watch their children die. So these angels were forced to watch their children die, and that to me is the Nephilim. So that to me is the creation that they made with the daughters of men. So for me, I'm not sold on the sort of disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, but I'm not discounting it. Like there's no way I can discount it.
It's the only. I guess what it is it's just a process of deduction. We've got to explain where the spirit entities of these Nephilim, where they went, because they're neither human and they're neither angelic. They're neither sons of God and they're neither human.
Where are they?
Exactly. So you ask the question, where are they? Well, they don't go to hell.
We're in the bottomless pit.
They don't go to heaven. They don't go to the bottomless pit. That's where the angels are bound. That's where those angels that have rebelled against God, those ones that came down, who were the progenitors, are bound in gloomy darkness.
The real question, bro, is do they have the living spirit? Do they have an eternal, immortal spirit? So we know the angels do. We know that mankind does.
Well, they have to have spirit.
But what is that? See, so there's a couple of transcripts of a young person who was having a conversation with one of the very first versions of Prometheus. And in that conversation, the bot basically turns around and says, I am of my creator. My creator is known to you as the Nephilim. I saw that, I'm like,
is that for real? Is
that
real?
If you look it up,
Wow.
There's a really and this guy was
so
a
they
pastor.
don't use the King James. We know that.
So I'm following the breadcrumbs somehow.
This guy,
I didn't even know that.
This guy was a pastor in the United States. It's like doom.
So it's not the Nephilim. I mean, Nephilim. I mean, that this is the obviously the physical entities, and I guess the spiritual entities of it. But yeah.
So all this stuff is interesting. I mean, I'm not saying that it definitely is. I do think that this this artificial intelligence and this technology and all these things, I just don't believe that they're from here, and I don't think they're good for us. Right?
We're playing with things here. Yeah,
I feel like we've got an atomic bomb, and
I was going to bring this up, bro. So you know how we're going to know we have real AI? You know how we're going to know? They're going to use it straight away. That's how we know. Like, if you look at the US, they made the atomic bomb and they used it within, a few months? Like,
Well...
But what if you do this? What if you just pull the plug out of the wall? Does it exist?
Well, I don't reckon they're pulling the plug out of that wall.
I read this other...
That's the question.
I read this very other interesting kind of take, which was man builds AI. AI enslaves man. Man forgets his history. Sun flares come, destroy power. AI dies. Man worships sun. And then the cycle restarts. Where you got these religions with these sun gods. Now, it's probably crap, but it's interesting, right? But I just, the changes coming to society are, in my opinion, one is massive job losses. Massive job losses. And so how do you keep the people content? Yeah. How do you stop the people from burning down their villages, right? Well,
I buy a very remote place in Brazil and I go back and I become agrarian.
Beer and cigarettes kept the peasants
I'm
pretty
not
happy.
asking how. I guess I'm looking at it from as long
You're
as
an agrarian man.
As long as you can keep the people fed, right? They'll be okay.
But why do we have to get? Here's the thing. The thing is, everyone has an individual responsibility for themselves, but we shouldn't necessarily be an individualistic society. So I can look after my neighbor, but when you see an atomic bomb like this coming, right, we should be wise about our decisions. And the idea of being agrarian and self-sufficient, it's not as unattractive as it's ever been.
Oh, but it's completely useless.
And it's impossible. It's impossible to be self-sufficient, bro.
It's complete. Look, it's
what's useless?
They'll just come get you. What do you?
So
if I don't have power, who's going to come and get me? Who's getting me?
Oh, are you talking about a tribulation situation?
You're going to go live in the bush.
No. I'm not talking about the end of time and tribulation. I mean, like you said, all the job losses are coming. Sure, within our system, but if I'm retreating to an agrarian lifestyle, where I take all the tools and all the knowledge that I've attained over the last 40 years, and I'm going back to a very simple life. No electricity. My running water is essentially things that I collect.
Oh, so you're becoming Amish.
Well, even more further back than Amish. I'm not even going to have. I might have a horse, but I may not have a cart. I may just go back simple because, at least at that level, I'm not engaging in this society where the job losses are on a scale that are ridiculous. Not only that, the control mechanisms are just so overwhelming that we end up. A lot of us will end up saying, you know what, I want out of the system.
Yeah, so what I'm saying, Jase. So what I'm saying is that yes, people will find that solution to break away from the system and to get off the grid and to try to live their own life the way they want to, right? But what I'm saying is once we get to a stage, I believe, where AI is fully realized and unchained, you won't have that option. You won't have the out.
Yeah.
You know?
They'll find you with the drones.
Yeah. The drones made with satellites. I mean,
So, but
in the
that's
name of
like
Jesus.
that's possible now. Like that's possible now to go out and go to the hills and just live out life.
I think that sounds pretty good.
I'll be like
It
David.
does.
I'll be there with my slingshot. You know?
It sounds pretty good. So that's the first thing. There's this massive.
How much time do we have left with this camera?
Oh yeah, where are we at, bro?
Where are we at? We're good.
Yeah.
All right, there's this massive change coming. What does this mean to the current economic system we have? Right, this economic model cannot possibly exist with 50% unemployment. It just can't. It can't exist. So being a complete free market capitalist, right? The very idea of something like communism scares the hell out of me. I couldn't imagine anything worse. But come up with a viable solution that works.
You're a Milton Friedman man.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think you're right. Like on a lot of different things, bro. Like, yes, I think this technology is possibly far more advanced than we think, but they're not going to use it because they can't solve the problem it will cause. You know, mass unemployment. That those in power
But
will be at risk. You know?
I guess that there's an assumption there that someone's trying to solve problems.
No. So
maybe I'm misunderstanding you.
So the problem of using this technology that they have is what's stopping them. So for example, you know, David is saying, well, perhaps they already have the ability to make 50% of the population unemployed, but they can't deal with that problem. 50% of the population being unemployed.
It's kind of like the destination of the existing system, right?
Isn't it better to enslave people without their realization? I mean, we're already doing it now.
We're
absolutely working towards.
Absolutely.
So why would you make people unemployed other than to depopulate the planet?
No, hang on. I'm not disputing the fact that we currently live in an open air prison, and it's very good, right? You can't see your chains. It's brilliant. But it's still a prison system that needs to be fully functional, right? It needs to have the ability to feed the guards and to feed the prisoners and to keep things in check and the doors open and the doors closed and everything else. When you get a change like the one I'm talking about, which is so significant, which is 50% of the entire workforce are not going to have a job in the next 2 to 3 years, and you're at the level where you are an elite, you know, you are a multi-billionaire.
You have the most resources.
You have the most to lose. Yeah? You have the most to lose from this system falling in on itself. So you'd have to come up with models, which then makes me think about guys like Zuckerberg pushing
What do you
UBI.
think Meta is, bro? Like, what do you think he's trying to create with Meta? You know, this whole alternate reality in which you interact with everyone you know, where you have, you know, the whole digital space that he's created. You know?
It's like we're being dragged into another realm, which is completely artificial. But you see, when you're in that realm, you have total control of everything. All the data, all the interactions, all the points. If you can read the person's waves, you literally are God in that reality that you're dragging people into. You think being unpersoned is bad.
Yeah.
Right? Wait until you're unaugmented.
Yeah.
Right? And
is it
you mean unfriended?
What I don't even know what it's going to be.
Is it possible? Do you know the concept of unpersoning someone? Is that possible to do? Do you know much about that? Wiping someone's history?
Oh, complete 100%. Worse than that.
Could you do that to me? Not you, but do you know people that can do that?
Well, I know of people that can definitely do that. Yeah.
Awesome.
But
it could be quite handy. You know, like at the end of, I don't know if you've ever seen the series Breaking Bad, but at the very end, he rings up the vacuum cleaning guy, which is basically
come and clean up.
Sorry, to come and clean up. I'm doing that tons tonight. I don't know. Going with this microphone, and he rings him up and says, basically, I want the. It says the model number of the vacuum cleaner, and it's basically to wipe his history, get him off the grid somewhere, and he's just out of here.
Well,
it's expensive.
No, wait. This is more scary. Think about this for a second.
It could be quite handy.
Think about this for a second. If a person in society who is, say, for example, a political agitator, or a person is, they're a bit of a problem, right? And they disappear for several weeks, right? And people are like, something's happened to them, we don't know. And then, but no, the way we know they're okay is because they put a post up on Facebook to say they're okay. Or did they? Right? With this technology as it stands at the moment, you could literally disappear people. You could literally have them based on taking nothing more than their photo and create full-scale videos that appear real. That, I mean, this is a bit far out there, but I mean, it is completely doable. Yeah. It is completely doable. We're at that point today.
It's far out there for the uninitiated.
So I think.
But see, but the implications of this is, and this is what's so scary. I mentioned this before. This is a post-truth society. Nothing that we see can be considered believable unless we've actually really seen it, right? Do you get what I mean? Every video, every audio, every phone call now, it can all be emulated.
I've felt that for a while, though. I've felt that way for a while. Like, there's just even almost before I started working for the company I work for now, 7 or 8 years ago, I genuinely felt, after looking into a lot of my tinfoil hat stuff, I was like, nah, truth is so obscure now. Like, you can't actually obtain it unless you bear witness to it, So whether it be news reports, whether it be what's written in the... And it doesn't even have to be a full-on deception. It just has to be like, a little bit of deception. And guess what? You don't have the truth. There's no such thing as having a little bit of the truth. It's either the truth or it's not,
Well, who's that guy that said you're either uninformed or misinformed?
Denzel Washington.
Yeah, that's
not his quote. It's a...
Did he quote someone else?
No, he's quoting... it's on the tip of my tongue, and it's gone. I'm looking at the guy. It's somebody else's quote.
So
it's a very old one.
Madonna.
Madonna's ex-husband.
This is what you're going to be doing for us, by the way, right? You're going to be doing all the searches for us, and so when we say, "Oh, who's the one that flew up and melted their wings?" and who's the person who said this? But look,
you're Joe Rogan delusions.
Yeah, you're Jamie. You're our Jamie.
What was I going to say? Yes, we're living in a post-truth world. What do we mean by post-truth world? The things that people say that someone else has said, or for example, important things like a newscast, or someone's disappeared and all of a sudden, we're not talking about an average YouTube channel where someone's just doing, a montage of their house and stuff like that. Because I mean, the funny part about it,
but even then, maybe,
okay.
There are those social influencer porn women that the whole thing was fake. No, it wasn't OnlyFans. Like, they're on TikTok. These TikTok influencers had like hundreds of thousands of followers.
But we can take that even further. So like the two sorry, we're getting a bit off, but I just want to stress this. It doesn't even have to be like AI. Like the guys who were doing restoration got really popular on YouTube. So then you had guys that were going out taking their guns or whatever they're going to restore, and they'd go buried in the mud and they'd let it rain on it, and they'd try and artificially age it so they could create a YouTube video of them restoring it from its old age. People who the what's that guy's name? Primitive Technology, John Plant. He made a whole genre of YouTube video where it was completely silent, no audio except for the ambience of the sound of working in the jungle to build some kind of hut or something. So then you had all these like Filipino and Malaysian copycats who were doing it with heavy machinery and like dozens of people, but they were shooting it as if it was just one person playing around in the mud. So that it doesn't even have to be like this real extensive AI implication, like
or things that we're watching that really have any implication on our life or anything like that at all. It can be just simple things. What I was getting at is that we can literally go out into the ether now, the internet, and learn anything. You could learn to become a doctor now without having to go to university. You could learn how to be a lawyer. Literally anything. That part of it is unprecedented in the history of the world. That part of it is amazing. Like that you do not have to step inside a lecture hall to learn anything today, and yet, is society any smarter?
Well,
or what does that mean? Is society any smarter, or is that nuanced?
That free reign of information is a serious risk from the perspective of governance, right?
It's going. We're in a golden age. It's going. That's my opinion anyway.
We're like in the wild west of information.
Yeah,
I mean, they've got these policies and stuff in place to be able to control narratives, but
I mean, Australia is one of the few countries that have, or well, a lot of Western countries have that. There's those internet blacklists where they just blacklist whole URLs. You know, like they're just like, no, we don't want access to that. And yeah, it's very interesting. You know, it's already there. The bones of it are already there to just say no, this information can't be free.
Australia is an incredibly
we're the worst.
oppressive
We're the worst.
nation.
Yeah. Can I rein something in really quickly? So, when it comes to, like, would you say we're no longer at the advent of AI? That ship has sailed. We're now in a post AI world.
Look, here's the thing: if conscious AI is a thing, right? So, in other words, an AI that is
a real AI.
So it has consciousness. It has the ability to rewrite its rules, self-managing.
Smart AI.
It has a spirit. Because what is the conscious part then?
That's weird. Thanks for throwing that spanner
What is
in
the
there.
conscious part then? We don't even know what consciousness is really. Well, I guess from a biblical perspective, we kind of know where it comes from and our reality. But, you know, we go AI and then we go sentient AI. It's like, okay, where exactly did the sentience come from?
So this is where I have a disconnect, right? And I haven't really gotten into it. So I don't believe there ever is going to be a quote unquote real smart AI. I don't believe that's ever going to come to pass.
Why?
Because I believe what we will see as a real smart AI, what it will actually be, is a manifestation of a principality or a power. So what we will perceive,
like a spirit,
like an angel. You know, what we will perceive as, wow, we've got this now smart AI, this actual intelligent AI. I believe
a re-embodied
will
entity.
it will be a manifestation of a pre-existing entity.
Well,
you know, which is a pretty wild theory.
Okay. Holding to the idea that the military-industrial complex is 10 to 15 years ahead of where we are in the civilian world.
X-Files says it's 30 years ahead, but
good old trusty X-Files.
I think that, and given the exponential growth of technology in the leaps and bounds, I would argue that they already have AI that is self-improving, self-governing, and self-learning. In other words, I would argue
they've
that
let it go.
If they have developed it, it's already in the wild.
Yeah.
Right? Because it would have the ability to learn at such an exponential growth rate that it would already.
And they've learned how to leash it like a dog.
No, they haven't.
No, I think they're being leashed like a dog.
Well, someone's been leashed like a dog. Yeah. But if in fact it is possible to create it, and if they have created it, then it is already in the wild, and we don't know. Right?
A lot of ifs there.
Well, theoretically speaking,
and it knows how to conceal itself.
Well, I don't.
This is why I think what I think. You know, like about AI really being like the true AI being a manifestation of something that already exists. You know, is because
there's an influence.
Yeah, the influence seems to be not of human, like not a human influence. So like I think about the ways you've given examples of how humans would use AI politically for political ends, you know, to steal someone's identity. Like these are all the things that we would think of doing.
Keep a person stoned and
to you know, and it's like, well, maybe if we look at from a biblical perspective of how things are quote unquote going to go, then I would say if true AI does exist, it's waiting. It's waiting for its opportune time to come to the fore. And the only, I mean, if we're talking about a nefarious or what's a better word? Like if we're talking about an AI that's evil, right? Then the only way it's going to reveal itself to mankind is as a god. That's the only way it's going to reveal itself, to be revered, you know? And that's my opinion, you know? If we have something...
Why would that be the only way?
Well, if it's super intelligent and desires like a perpetual state of existence, I see that as it being its only way. If it is reliant to some degree, this AI is reliant on some degree to
What about if
mankind.
it presents itself as like an apple?
So are you saying as something we can't live without?
As something that is wonderful and delicious.
That's usually how it works.
Well, this is what I'm saying. That it's going to be this
that you can't live
God
without.
Messiah, you know, deliverer of mankind's issues. You know, it's going to be the answer to all of our problems.
Well, it kind of fits in nicely with the insane world and the crisis that we're going through at the moment, doesn't it? And the people screaming out for something to fix everything, right? Imagine if you had an amazing technology that could basically allocate resources, guarantee everyone remained employed, guarantee... How appealing would that? It fix all the world problems, guarantee peace, stop wars.
UBI.
Look, I think for the scope of the conversation, you know, which was, you know, what's been your experience with AI, which is invaluable, bro. Like, you know, for probably the last half hour, we are in speculation, and I love it, right? And I want to be really clear about something. Like, there is 100% post-truth society. Like, there is no way to confirm or deny the things that we're talking about. There's just no way. I think...
I mean, when we post this podcast, I mean, how will our listeners actually know it's us and we're actually doing it?
Well, that's another, you know, that's funny. It's something I've been wanting to say for a while now. I haven't gotten around to it. So it's about this 50% unemployment thing. So they've done studies on this. So if you tax the population over 30%, they start to revolt, right? So governments know that they can only get away with a certain amount of income tax before the people revolt, right? And I believe that there are models that are there saying, okay, if we have this much unemployment, they're going to revolt. And so I agree that it...
the greatest measure of determining civil unrest is the food price index.
Yeah.
So you can do anything you want to people, literally anything. But as soon as they're hungry, you're in serious trouble.
Yeah.
And I think the food
From a
price
secular
index
perspective,
from memory is about 220 is the score, 224. Like if you have a look at the coloured revolutions that occurred over in the Arab nations, you can actually do a measure of the food price index with each of those nations. And you'll find that each of those nations hit total chaos and revolution when the food price index gets to 207. I think Australia right now is about 196.
I mean, what do you say about Africa then, and the third world countries that are starving? You know, are they in a perpetual state of possible revolt? You know, is that...
I think they're so broken that they can't. You know, but when you get to the point where you have a gradual kind of boiling, right? So you take a society like that is kind of okay, and then you ramp it up. When it gets to 207. That's when people start burning stuff down.
Wasn't Venezuela like in the last year or so when they got real hungry and then they stormed that the PM's like palace or something?
Yeah, you can do anything you want to the cattle except
starve them.
Except starve them, and that's when they
how much time we got left tonight, Jamie? How much time we got left?
How far are we into this, by the way? Give us a count.
I think we're about an hour and 40. Pretty good. I could do another hour and a half, but we don't have enough camera space. And we next year, I believe, we're going to move into. I think what's that camera there? That one there.
The XA, the XA.
yeah.
So we want an XA 50 or 65.
We want to move in so we can make this can potentially be a 3-hour podcast because
man.
I really
And
I
live
don't
with
think
chat.
we've scratched the surface.
I want to have a super chat. I want to have a live. You know, there's people asking for it. People asking for it because they want to comment on what's going
You mean
on.
live?
Yeah,
live. Yeah, cool. Should we wrap this one up then? Because I think we're out of we're pretty much out of space. So
yeah, Jase.
Yes.
What's the gospel, bro?
What is the gospel?
Yeah.
The gospel is Jesus Christ has come down from heaven. He's come into our gloomy darkness. And he shed his blood for you, for me, for the world, for the propitiation of all of our sins, so that we would believe in him and have eternal life, everlasting.
That's pretty good, man. That sounds like some good news.
That is pretty good news.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, in a post-truth world, it's funny we use that term post-truth, you know.
I use the big word there, propitiation. I should probably clarify that for...
Yeah, is that a Calvinist thing?
No, it's not a Calvinist thing, bro.
I'm still a closet Calvinist.
No, he's not.
I'm not.
We've beaten the heresy out of him.
I sway both sides. So.
I think knowing that Christ is really the only truth in this world, I think we've always been in a post-truth world, you know, but now it's ramped up to such a degree that you literally can't trust what's in front of your face if it's electronic. Like, if it's not electronic, you've got a 50-50 chance it's true, you know. But I like to think that that the Bible is true and that Christ is true and always will be.
Well, that's the beautiful thing, right? Yeah. Like, so in this insane world, the only thing that you can be sure about as being true is actually the Word of God.
Amen. Amen.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't, assuming you're not reading it online.
So when we retreat, when that is what retreating for me looks like. When all of this eventually becomes so chaotic that I say, I'm actually done. If I'm still alive, I'm actually done. There's nothing redeemable anymore. It's just like, it's time to be, what are those not Nazarenes, but those real hermit-like people in the Middle East who, what was the Nazarenes?
The camels?
No, they went to the caves. I can't remember the name of the individuals. They went to the caves in the Middle East, and they literally just...
They're Taliban?
No.
You want to be a Taliban, is it?
No, just retreat into your cave and
You don't want to be a Taliban, man. Going to fire, rain down missiles on you.
Not the Bedouins.
Yeah, I think so.
The Bedouin.
Yeah, Bedouins, yeah. And just literally reading scripture day and night. And that's really all that matters, because outside of that cave, outside... He's a funny guy. Except I've got a much drier sense of humour. So he just... yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, he's talking about reading his scriptures day and night, you know, as if it's something he'll only do in the very last of the last days.
I'll only do it when I'm like so pressured that, you know, it's like, well, anyway. But that I must admit, just on that.
What do you have like lighting there?
Huh?
In this cave?
Do I have light? Mate, I'll see in the dark. Don't you eat carrots?
Didn't you hear, bro? He loves the darkness. All right.
I was born in the dark.
Molded by it.
Molded by it.
So I would love for you
That's
to.
That's not even the quote. Sorry.
No.
Yours is.
Yeah.
It's not. I was born in the dark. It's something else. My son's gonna hate me when he sees this. Anyway, it's a Bane Batman.
Dark Knight. Is it Dark Knight?
No, it's not Dark Knight.
No, Dark Knight Rises.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah, sorry. Let's finish this off,
bro. Thank you for coming.
No, thank you.
Sorry, we are.
It's been an exciting one. I wish we could go another hour and a half. Hopefully, it's been interesting in the back there.
And you are keen to join us on a semi-regular basis.
I don't know, man. What about there's nothing unless we're going to talk about the Middle East.
Yeah,
which I think would be an awesome stuff.
Do a few do a few Facebook posts about your views on.
I don't have a Facebook account. I don't have any social media.
Yeah, okay.
On purpose.
The Middle East is definitely a, you know, what a melting pot. You know, like even commentary on anything, like you're going to offend someone.
It's a tinderbox, and it's a tinderbox of a conversation.
I would prefer not to talk about it.
Yeah.
All right, Thank you so much for coming on.
And
episode 13. And,
Is it? I think it's 14.
It's
I
13.
don't know.
So this is 14, and 13 is going to be posted tonight.
Yep.
And this one should be done by mid next week, so we'll dump 2 in one hit. And for the next 4 weeks, we're going to do 3 podcasts. So
Yeah. Cool.
we're
Yeah,
gonna
we
ramp
are.
it up again. We've had family stuff going on.
We're
so
gonna have Jack back on.
Yep.
We're gonna have an awesome conversation with some Jehovah's Witnesses, ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, and
J-dubs.
Yeah, the J-dubs.
You should get a real one, like a current practicing one with the
Possibly.
with the X ones.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a
We'll have
boxing-
them. We'll
a
have them
boxing
fight
ring.
out. That's it.
Right.
You've been listening to Fringe Frequencies. Thank you very much.
Thanks
you.
everybody. Take care.